All right, top of the morning to all of you folks. Jessie Coffield to my left, Emerson Lotzia to her right. We are here to guide this vessel we call the sweat. 55 minutes, can you believe that? Of DFS and sports betting advice galore.
So much to get to today, but let's start it off with our NFL panel. DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich, Jeff Ulrich, and Steve Buchanan. Fellas, we're doing a little NFL over-under. So will these Week 11 NFL games go over or under their listed total?
Okay, easy enough. Let's start with Dallas at Kansas City. 56.5 points. Pierce, that's the highest total by a mile on the slate. You going over or under?
I'm going to go under. This projection is just way too high. It's an overreaction from last week. I don't think 1 week Kansas City has figured everything out. Look at this Dallas team. Their recipe for success in this game is just play conservative, keep the ball on the ground, play good defense. They've got the 4th best DVOA in football, so run the ball, play defense. And let's not forget Kansas City, their problem is they turn the ball over too much. 2 giveaways per game, that's the 2nd most in football. Oh, guess what? The Dallas Cowboys, 4th in football in takeaways. I think everything lines up pretty well for the Cowboys to win this game and keep this thing underneath.
I mean, Jeff, we're talking 2 teams here coming off blowout victories. Can they score that many points again against each other?
I mean, they certainly can. I think we have to give the Dallas defense just a little bit of credit here. I mean, I still believe like this team will get in more shootouts down the road. And realistically, they haven't faced a top 5 passing offense since week 1. But it's pretty impressive to go on the road, limit Minnesota to 16 points. You know, this game definitely could delve into like a 31 game or something like that. But I think all things considered, when we get to 55 points, like I'd like to see this come down to 54. I think that's more of a realistic total to go over at. So I think Pierce is right from the perspective of it's inflated off of last week when we saw both offenses perform. I would still be more interested in this game going over. I don't really want to bet it under, but I would be more interested if this total came down to 54. You might see some action come down on it later in the week. So right now, this one's looking like too big for me as well.
Steve, what are you feeling here? Because Kansas City's gone over 56.5 points in 4 of 10 games. Dallas has gone over that mark 5 games.
Yeah, but then you look at the past 5 games for both teams. They're combined 3-7 with the over the last 5 games. They're just not hitting the over. And you want to talk about overreactions, like that's all the NFL has been as of late. Last week, you could have got Dallas at -8 against the Falcons. That was one of the easiest cashes that you could have had over the past few weeks. This is just overreaction after overreaction because nobody knows what's going on in the NFL anymore. I agree with both of these guys. This total is just a little too inflated for me at this point. Jeff pointed out perfectly, 54.5 feels like the sweet spot that I think I would be inclined to take the over here, but at 56.5, it's a tad too much for me right now.
All right, how about Indianapolis at Buffalo? It's sitting at 50.5 points, Jeff. I mean, these 2 teams combined to average 57.9 points per game. Quick maths, that is 7.9 more points than this total.
Damn.
Luckily, you were doing the math there.
Thank
I would
God.
still be struggling with it. I'm more inclined to go over here. I think Indy, you have to give some credit to what their offense has done. Over 30 points in 4 straight games now. Obviously, they figured out, well, maybe it's just Jonathan Taylor just figuring out how good he is at running the football. I don't know. They're still not giving him enough carries, but even on 20 touches, Jonathan Taylor just feels like he's going to go off against anyone. So we're not really scared about that. I mean, I think that, with Josh Allen and the Buffalo O-line as well playing better now and Steph Diggs, mainly the other side of the ball is like, how is Indy going to stop Buffalo? I mean, they don't really have the greatest pass rush and their secondary isn't going to stop Steph Diggs. So I don't see Buffalo necessarily getting pinned down. Like we said, Indianapolis, maybe they're not winning enough games, but like their offense has been almost impossible to start. I'm actually surprised this one didn't open higher. I think at 50 points, you do lean over here.
Do you lean over, Steve?
I think this is another under here. The thing with the Colts is that you see that they've scored 30 points in 3 of their last 4 games, and then they posted 23 against the Jaguars. Really bad defensive teams. That is not who the Buffalo Bills are. They are one of the better defensive teams in the league. They are absolutely limiting opposing quarterbacks. They are decent against the run. I mean, quite frankly, let's all be honest here. This offense has been clicking, just like Jeff said, because of Jonathan Taylor, not because Carson Wentz is, doing his thing and moving them downfield. Half of the throws that he makes, you're like, what was that? What is he even thinking? That's the kind of team that it is. It's being carried by Jonathan Taylor right now. He has a tough matchup here against the Bills. I mean, we had a tough matchup last week against the Jaguars, and he was absolutely running all over them. But with that said, if we're going to be hoping for Jonathan Taylor to have another big game, that's going to lead to a lot of clock eating, and that usually leads to under. So 50.5 points, I think we're here at the under again.
Just most of that damage by Taylor, by the way, was in the first quarter. You know, I've really
Okay,
found
know
we
what that has
get
to do with
it.
anything.
You're a Jags
Well, you're just
homer.
talking about how he ran
Just
over the Jags. It was
relax.
just one quarter. Really.
Okay, Pierce, one for the over, one for the under. Break the tie.
Such a Jaguars apologist. It will never
Yeah.
end.
It's really
Give me
sad.
the over, but it is close. It
Yes.
looks like Buffalo is back to your 35 point per game team with the offensive line being healthy. And you look at what Indy does. They shut down the run. They prevent big pass plays. Well, Buffalo doesn't run the ball, and they'll move the chains with the dink and dunk passes, and they'll get their points. The issue, like Steve alluded to, can Indianapolis get the points? And this is what we talk about every single week with Buffalo. Buffalo's going to get their points, but can teams score against Buffalo's defense? And I've been betting the under the last couple weeks, and it burned me last week because the Jets ended up with 17 points. So if the Jets can squeak out 17, I think Indianapolis can get just enough to push this thing over.
All right, well, on to Green Bay at Minnesota. This total sitting at 49 points right now. How do you feel about this one, Steve?
Yeah, I think this one can go over at 49 points. Green Bay has been great defensively, but they're also terrible at hitting the over. They're only 2-8 in that sense. With that said, Pierce is agreeing with me. I mean, I don't need
This is wild.
I don't need you to tell me that I'm right, okay? But the problem with this is that these are going to be two teams that are going to want to throw the ball. Obviously, Aaron Jones is going to be missing this game. That means A.J. Dillon is going to be stepping in. He can catch. He can run. He's going to take that role just fine. But I think we're going to see a lot of passing in this game. These are obviously two teams that are very, very familiar with each other. This is not going to be like a guaranteed over. It's going to be like 60 points or whatever. But under 50 points, I'd be interested in taking the over.
Pierce, you're really agreeing with Steven, huh? Is hell frozen over?
Approval is the word you're searching for there, Steve.
Thanks.
I don't approve of
Thanks,
your
Dad.
pick. This thing is going to go under. Green Bay, like you mentioned, they've gone under 8 times in 10 games this season. That doesn't seem like a fluke. That seems like the way that they're playing. Their defense has been great this season, 11th in DVOA. They're playing awesome without Jair Alexander. Unbelievably, Kevin King is one of the top-rated PFF cornerbacks in the league. I don't know how these numbers work, but either way, it looks like the defense is holding other teams down. And the offense is the question. We expect Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams to pad the stats. They're not doing that. And I know they didn't get to practice last week, but they're not padding the stats. They're just trying to win games. They're not taking unnecessary risks. They're letting their defense play the game. They're running the ball. I don't think Green Bay is going to get a lot of points, and I think Green Bay is going to keep the other team from scoring a lot of points. So give me the under.
Yeah, Jeff, and now you got A.J. Dillon, the quad father 2.0 in the backfield starting for Green Bay.
Who's 1.0? You, Emerson? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you
I'd
know
like
me
to
well,
think
my friend.
so.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that, but anyways. Anyway. This one feels a little bit trappy to take the under here, but I am going to do it. I just feel like, again, Green Bay, they played the slowest pace in the league, and sometimes we have to give their defense some credit here. Pierce alluded to their record here. They're 2-8 at hitting unders. It feels like every week we get these like high 40, 50 point totals on Green Bay because it's like, oh, well, Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, so they're going to score 30 points. This is the week. And then they just grind it out with their running backs. They win by 7 points, and the total's like 45 points. Minnesota's defense also playing a little bit better here. I think we need to give them some credit. So I think A.J. Dillon is going to run the ball. Minnesota doesn't have a good run defense, and I think that's just going to take the air out of this game. I think 49 is too big as well. I would take the under in this one.
All right, finally, we've got Washington football team at Carolina with Cam possibly as QB1. 43 points. That's the lowest total on the slate. Pierce, you going over or under?
I'll take the over. This is a low number. Again, like Steve mentioned, it's another overreaction. I don't think Washington is as good as they were last week. Tom Brady had a bad game. Washington didn't play very well. But Washington's not as bad offensively as they've been for most of the season. They should be able to put up some points against, I would say, an average Carolina team. And then you look at the other side, Cam Newton is going to face, hopefully it's Cam Newton, will face one of the worst pass defenses in football. He's got the weapons. The biggest issue you worry about with Carolina is their offensive line and dealing with the pass rush. Well, Washington lost their best pass rusher, rookie of the year, and then they were just 14th in terms of adjusted sack rate, 19th in terms of pressure rate before that. So if Cam Newton doesn't have to deal with a lot of pressure, or P.J. Walker, whoever that ends up being starting the quarterback. So I'll take the over here. I think they'll be able to put points up against Washington. Everyone else does.
Jeff, you want to roll with the over?
Yeah, I do. This one is really close. I think if it was up to 44 and a half, I would lean under here. Carolina has been an under machine, but I agree with Pierce. I think this spot, I think their offense can really get it together. You saw, I think that Carolina has kind of lucked into a bit of an offensive sort of upgrade with Sam Darnold getting injured. Their offense was not performing well with him 4 weeks in a row. Now you bring in a run-first quarterback. Regardless if it's PJ Watt, it's probably going to be Cam Newton. You've got a guy who's really, really efficient in red zone situations, and now you've got a healthy Christian McCaffrey. I think this just ends up being Carolina's offense breaks out a little bit against a terrible defense. And look, we've seen Taylor Heineke produce for us in garbage time before, so I think that we can probably consider or rely on, Washington for like 15 points, 17 points here or something like that. So, yeah, I do want to lean over. If this one crept up, though, around the 44 range, I do think I'd probably lean the other way.
Steven, which way you leaning?
Yeah, look, I mean, I hate totals like this. Like, you see 43, and you're like, what am I going to do with this total? You know what I mean? And look, everybody's excited about Cam Newton. It's fine. It's a great story, okay? But I mean, what? The guy runs in for a touchdown and hands off for another touchdown. If a batter steps up to the plate, hits 2 home runs, is he all of a sudden a home run hitter? No. Does that mean Cam Newton's a competent quarterback all of a sudden now? No. But the matchup is in his favor, right? Because we all know how bad Washington is. Here's one thing you can rely upon. These are 2 quarterbacks who will turn over the ball. And if there's going to be a lot of turnovers in this one, that could easily lead to the over. That's just a sloppy game here. So I'll take the over on this one. But let me tell you something. I'm not going out of my way to bet this game, okay? There's a billion other things you can bet on. I was just answering this question because they asked me.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we did have to ask.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate you answering the question that we asked you. Appreciate it,
You're
guys. A-Block is in the books. Jeff, stick around because you're going to help us break down tonight's hockey slate with AJ and Paul right after we hear from Jason Sobel on this week's RSM Classic down in Georgia.
Nice.
Let's get into it. The return to the PGA Tour, at least for the sake of these chats with Jason Sobel, Action Network. I'm Adam Kaufman, and let's talk about the RSM Classic in Georgia, Jason. Scottie Scheffler, back-to-back top 5 finishes, including, of course, last week. He is the favorite on the DraftKings Sportsbook to win this thing at plus 1,000. Is this the week he finally winds up on top?
Maybe not. Look, I like Scottie Scheffler. We all like Scottie Scheffler. The guy is a top 20 player in the world already, a top 10 player in the making, maybe a top 5 player very, very soon. He's got all the tools. He was what we would call a 5-tool player if he was playing baseball instead. That said, 10-1 to win for the first time as the favorite. Boy, I'm going to hold off on that one. I think Scottie Scheffler can beat a bigger field at a bigger number. So I'm going to hold off until a week when, it'll be next year when we get him at a bigger price, because I just don't want to dip to 10-1. But yes, can he win? To answer your question, of course he can. He's really good.
We know who else can win, whether he will or not, we'll see, and that is Robert Streb, a guy we do not talk often about, obviously, but he is the defending champ. He has won at Sea Island a couple of times at this point. He's plus 7,000 to win this thing again. Now, I don't know how easy it'll be for him, obviously, to go out there and repeat. Maybe you would feel a little bit more comfortable looking at, let's say, a top 10 finish. That is plus 550 on the DK Sportsbook. How do you look at him and his odds?
Streber is one of the nicest guys on the PGA Tour, a guy that anyone who meets him would root for him every single time they watch him play. So certainly I'd love to see him go for a 3rd career victory at Sea Island this week. But, oh, boy, I don't know that I'm betting him outright. He did have a nice weekend in Houston, though, on a golf course that doesn't suit him nearly as much as both the Plantation and the Seaside tracks at Sea Island. So I will take Streb for a top 20 this week, a little bit of a cautious play. Really hard to win this thing for a second time, which he's done already, let alone a 3rd time.
It's not just your guy Streber right here. You got the past 6 winners at this event, all part of the field right here. Just to outline this group, you got Kevin Kisner, Mackenzie Hughes is there as well, Charles Howell III, Tyler Duncan, Austin Cook, all obviously with varying odds. Is there one guy in particular from this group that you're backing this week?
Well, first of all, congratulations to those who may have seen something a little interesting on DraftKings when the book first came out with the odds on Monday morning. Kevin Kisner was listed at 50-1. I was writing my preview at the time for Action Network, and I'm sitting there looking at it saying, ooh, 50-1 on Kisner. People are going to jump on that. Well, apparently they did. About 45 minutes later, I looked again, and he was down to 35-1. So if you got on Kisner that early, first of all, you weren't alone, and secondly, good luck with that ticket. A name he didn't mention, maybe it just didn't go back far enough, but the 2014 champion, Chris Kirk, who's right around 45-1 this week. I like him a lot. I've been waiting for Chris Kirk to pop near the top of a leaderboard all year, finished runner-up at the Sony Open back in January, and I thought a major burden was lifted from his shoulders back then, considering he had retained PGA Tour playing privileges with that finish. So I still think with one start left at a place where he plays really well and he's got a comfort level, again, 1 in 14, and he's got a couple of other top 10 finishes, I think this is a good place for Chris Kirk, which may or may have not answered your question, but that's what I'm going with.
Well, you can make the case that at least the back half of those guys are kind of long shots for this event, Duncan Cook in particular, obviously. So even beyond that, beyond the past winners, are there any real long shots or sort of that mid-range kind of guy on the DK Sportsbook that stands out to you as a real threat to win this thing?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'll start it with Denny McCarthy, who finished tied for 11th place at Houston last week. Comes to a couple of golf courses that should suit his game much, much better. His strokes gained around the green on Sunday in Houston was more than 3 in comparison with the field, and his putting was nearly 3 strokes gained against the field. That's really, really good. If he just hits the ball mediocre this week, he's got a chance to contend if he can keep up that type of chipping and putting. I like him a lot. And then there's a bunch of Southeastern guys. Think about all the guys who you could see maybe sitting in the front row of an SEC football game, collars popped, maybe sneaking a cold beverage in there. Brian Harmon is a guy who's played well here in the past, hasn't played his best golf recently, but I could see him doing it. He's a UGA guy, another UGA guy. There's so many of them in the field this week. Keith Mitchell, who's a guy that I really liked last week, had it going into the weekend, kind of lost it a little bit on the weekend, finished outside the top 40, but I could see him. And again, both those guys have much bigger numbers, a lot of value on them, probably more so than they should.
I haven't left my house much in the last couple of years. Has the pop collar made a comeback?
I believe so. It's on your TV.
That's fair. I'll take a look around.
Yeah, you have a TV there, right?
I do. Usually I'm just watching highlight reels of golf so that we can talk about that, though. All right, let's go the other way from that previous question. How about someone with shorter odds, but you're going to fade them this week?
Well, I'm going with another UGA guy. So you can't just jump on the whole UGA bandwagon, but Harris English is a guy who's played really well. Look, career resurgence over the past year. 2 victories on the PGA Tour, made the Ryder Cup team. I mean, he played so well that he's not only top 15 in the world right now, but he was a guest picker on College Game Day. A year ago, that never would have happened, but Harris English has exploded on the golf scene over the last 12 months. That said, he has not played his best golf as of late. He does not have a terrific record. In fact, last year was his first top 10 at this event, despite playing nearly every single year. So Harris English is a guy that, okay, the number's pretty good. For number 12 in the world, he's 25-1 this week, but he is indeed a fade for me.
I'm going to talk to the producers, find out if we can start to have you on to analyze some college football Saturdays as well. Not just the golf. Stick in the SEC. All right, last thing for you. We always wrap up here. We need a winner, in this case, for the RSM Classic.
All right, so I picked a winner. And then I went back after I wrote him up and after I talked about him and after I did some TV stuff talking about Brandon Grace plays really well on shorter coastal golf courses. Harbor Town is a nice little correlation to Sea Island, and he won there 5 years ago, won in Puerto Rico earlier this year. Since then, he's had 4 finishes of 7th or better. Went to that big playoff at the Wyndham just a couple of months ago. So this should be right up his alley. Played here for the first time last year, but only finished 30th, but shot 64 in the final round. So I believe that good things are coming. And then after I wrote about him, after I talked about him, I saw he's dealing with chronositis. I'm definitely not saying that right, but it's some sort of inflammation in the of the cartilage in the rib and breastbone area. I just know that from my medical background. I didn't look it up at all or anything like that. So a word of caution. So I've already picked him. I'm not going to go back on my pick. He's my favorite outright. He's 80-1. That's a big number. I love everything about him this week except the chronositis. This thing that he's dealing with.
Whatever it is,
apparently, according to Google, I don't think WebMD has him dying yet from it, but what they say is it could linger for a long time or it could go away very quickly. So I'm hoping for the latter of those two choices.
Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of The Sweat. It's time to talk that hockey with our NHL panel, DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich and RotoWire's Paul Bruno and AJ Schultz.
NHL opening face-off time, fellas. Need you to choose between the top options available to all of us on the slate. We have just 3 games tonight.
Small.
What's going on around
slate.
here? And all of them start at 9 o'clock Eastern time or later. I will be in bed.
Yep.
Jeff, you will not be in bed. What's the best money line on the board, do you think?
Oh, it's like 4 p.m. here when the game started for me. I think the best money line, I'm going to go to this Colorado Avalanche game. They're minus 160, which sounds like a short line against Vancouver, but it really isn't. Colorado started slow. They're 6-5-1, but over the last 2 games, I think they've scored like 12 goals or something. They're still allowing the fewest scoring chances against in the league. Darcy Kemper starting to play better. And the cherry on top here is, well, they're playing the Vancouver Canucks, who basically just stink at everything here. I don't think this line is giving enough respect to the Avalanche. This is still a very, very quality top 10, top 5 team in the league. They've just started slow. So I think you play the overreaction here. When are you going to get minus 160 Colorado against Vancouver? Probably never for the rest of the year. I think this money line is more than worth it tonight.
Yo, Paul, you agree with that?
I'm going to look at the other 2 games. I think Jeff covered that one very well. So I'm going to say look at the Chicago and Seattle game. The clubs are streaking in opposite directions. The Kraken with 4 straight losses, 20 goals against. Hawks with 3 straight wins. They're tightening up defensively, too, with only 14 goals against in Fleury's last 6 starts. I expect both of these recent trends to continue tonight, so I'll take Chicago plus 130 on the money line.
AJ, sorry, I thought you were done there.
In the other game, the Caps complete the back-to-back in Southern California. I'm giving you more value.
Yeah.
OT loss in Anaheim last night. Meanwhile, the Kings are home following a perfect 4-game road trip through Canada. I'm always wary of that first game back from the road trip for the Western clubs. And even though the Kings are on a 3-day rest, the angry visitors will prevail tonight. So I take the Caps at minus 120 to win this one.
All right, AJ, you're here, and now you only have scraps to choose from. Everything's been covered. What are you going to roll with?
Yeah, man, absolutely agree with Paul on the Blackhawks at plus 130 going up against Seattle. Grubauer, if he starts, is bogged down in a 3-game losing streak. I'll look a little bit puck line here. I agree with Jeff. I think Colorado should roll tonight, and I really like giving up a goal and a half to get plus 155 value on the Avalanche. Again, similar to the line here, you're not going to get that much value too often, giving up a goal and a half, and it's a good spot here for Colorado.
All right, let's move on. Paul, which total do you feel like is the best to target?
Look, we've already talked. The Colorado offense is on fire, 27 goals in their last 6 games, despite missing McKinnon. Meanwhile, the Canucks have given up 28 in their last 6 games. Expect a high-scoring game here. So I take the over on the alternate goal line for plus 130 payoff at 6.5 on the line. And in LA, the Kings have really put up the clamps on all opponents in terms of defensive coverage with their 2-way centers, Kopitar and Deneau, running things here. They're giving that edge down the middle of the ice. Tonight, the Caps, though, have no trouble grinding it out and be effective at a low event game, too. I'll take the under at 5.5 for a plus 100 payoff.
All right, AJ, which total is the best to target in your opinion?
Yeah, I like the Colorado over here at 6. You get even money to include the push. As Paul mentioned, you can give up that extra half goal, the plus 125. The other game I would look at maybe is the over in Chicago and Seattle. I think at minus 105, you're getting good value to only have to go over 5.5. And really, Paul made some good points, but with an under at 5.5, I'll take the over in that Caps-Kings game as well.
All right, Jeff, what do we think?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that the Colorado game almost didn't get a 6.5 total just with how good Colorado's offense is playing and with the Vancouver Canucks on tap. So I'm definitely all about the over there. That's my favorite total to target. You're getting plus money to go over 6. AJ mentioned the push, so that's a great option. The other 2 games, not as enticing to me. I think I would lean over in that Chicago-Seattle Kraken game, though. That's probably my second favorite on the board. Definitely a spot where the Chicago offense could get off. And look, it's not like the Chicago Blackhawks. They've played good defensively the last couple games, but it's not like they're not prone to letting like 4 goals in either. So I think all things considered, second favorite probably just to go over that Chicago-Seattle game. But Colorado, Vancouver, the 6 total to go over, that's my favorite.
All right, dudes, let's go over to the DFS side here. You have Ovechkin in action and the Avs top line here. Where are you looking to spend up, AJ?
Well, honestly, I think the answer can be both. If you build up your lineup, the right way, you'd have to really skimp and save in other spots here. But between the two, I think I'd rather consider stacking the Avs top line. Even with McKinnon out, you'll pay up for Rantanen and Landeskog, but also let you get in Logan O'Connor at just 3,900. Normally, you can't, it's really, really hard to stack that entire top line for Colorado, but you can do it tonight because it's O'Connor in that spot. So that's the one I like, but really I think both is a viable option.
Really, Jeff, can you squeeze all of them in to a lineup tonight with there only being 3 games?
I mean, yeah, like you can definitely squeeze the Colorado top line in, and I think that's that's 1 of 2 places I would start. I mean, I think the other place is Chicago. I definitely don't hate starting with Patrick Kane and then pairing him with Alex DeBrincat and maybe even Seth Jones. It's a 3-game slate, so going heavy on one of these games definitely is worth your while. AJ mentioned the Colorado Avalanche, and I think that a lot of people will be starting with their top line, but I think stacking the Blackhawks gives you very similar ceiling here. They're a little bit cheaper. You can get Kirby Dack in there for well under $5K as well to bring the total stack down. And then again, but you've got 2 really prime players in Kane and Seth Jones to begin with. So all things considered, you're looking either at, Colorado's top line, which again, you get some value with O'Connor, or you go to Chicago, in my opinion, with Kirby Dack. I think that the Blackhawks have a little bit more GPP appeal for me because they should be lesser owned. Again, they're the road underdogs, although I'm not sure if they should be road underdogs. And, Colorado obviously coming off some really high sentiment games. So I like the Blackhawks studs tonight a lot.
Okay, Paul, what do you do here with some of these top-priced, high-priced options?
I listened to what Jeff just said. I mean, Nico Rantanen, for instance, $7,800 against Vancouver. The guy's got 12 points and 28 shots on goal in his last 10 games. The Canucks are in disarray. The GM was called in for a meeting with the club senior execs. That's not to get planning going for the Thanksgiving Day dinner game. I opt also to save $1,300 and take Patrick Kane for $7,800 with his favorable matchup against Seattle. The Hawks' big shooter has 15 points in his last 10 games and is averaging 5 shots on goal per game. The Kraken won't contain him either.
All right, Jeff, need some value here. Where is it tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super high on Seattle. I don't think any of us are, but I really don't mind targeting their forwards in DFS. I mean, you've got a guy, I mean, I've brought him up numerous times already this year, but Jaden Schwartz, very productive for a sub $4,500 player. I mean, it's the guy who's averaging about 3 shots on goal per game. He's averaging nearly a point per game. Well, he is averaging a point per game over his last 10 starts or so. So he's really picked it up for the Kraken. Again, getting top line minutes, and I don't mind Yanni Gourde either at center, who's again under 4,500. I mean, yeah, the Blackhawks have picked it up defensively. We know that, but this is still the Blackhawks. They're still not what you'd call like a top team. So I think all things considered, the Seattle Kraken are at home. You've got 2 really good, really cheap Seattle Kraken forwards you can pair together, and I think that's a good value stack there if you're just looking to get a little bit of exposure and save some money tonight with Seattle.
All right, Paul, please help me out with some value.
I'm going to include a goalie for bonus value here. I grabbed AJ's fanboy fave Fleury in the nets for $7,500, the cheapest netminder, who will have a high win probability in Seattle tonight, in my opinion. Among the skaters, I'll help you save money by taking Samuel Girard of the Avs on defense for only $3,800 as part of that Colorado stack we've been talking about. This guy's got 9 points in his last 10 games, averaging 10 DraftKings points per game. That's the best value by miles for a defenseman anywhere on tonight's slate, in my opinion. And among the forwards, I go to the late game and pick up LA's Adrian Kempe, who's priced at only $4,000, despite the fact he's playing first-line minutes, has 8 points and 30 shots on goal in his last 10 outings.
All right, AJ, hit us with some value here.
Yeah, I got 2 guys that are playing in the top 6 that aren't going to cost you much. First is Connor McMichael for Washington, comes in at just $4K. He's going to anchor that second line with Connor Sherry and Daniel Sprong. And then I also really like Philip Kurashev, a again, going to the Blackhawks. He's going to play on that second line. They are a little bit more first line dependent so far this season. Jonathan Taves struggling out the gate here. But I think if he starts get going, he's got 2 assists in the last 3 games. He can kind of carry along Dominic Kubalik and Philip Kurashev with him.
AJ, Paul, Jeff, thanks for doing that thing you just did and helping us out with the hockey lineups. Again, late games tonight.
Yeah, small.
9 o'clock
small
Eastern time.
Slate.
Small
slate.
But rolling through our show now, quick break here, and then we're going to talk about a much larger slate around the NBA. 11 games coming up. We have 3 guys here to help us out.
All right, we've got 11 games coming our way on tonight's NBA slate, and 3 analysts here to help us make sense of it. DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer, Garion Thorne, and Julian Edlow.
Yeah, NBA building blocks time. Who are your favorite DFS plays at the following positions on tonight's slate? Start us off with your favorite play at center, Nick.
At center, I like Robert Williams tonight, but I know he's questionable with left knee tendinopathy. So, and there was sharp pain last game, so he came out early. That could be problematic. So I think that LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be a safer play. Of course, only at 5K going up against the Cavs. There are some good high price options at this spot too. I know Julius Randle. I like that game tonight, even though that is a lower point total. But LaMarcus Aldridge just sat out the first half against the Warriors, and it was for tactical reasons. Of course, that's a team that doesn't give a whole lot up against centers. So he's one of the more rested guys coming in off a back-to-back, or now on the second leg of a back-to-back. And the Cavs led up a fair amount of fantasy points to opposing centers, and they don't have Mobley or Allen tonight. So I think it makes a big difference. As much as Kevin Love reportedly may be on his way back for this game, I still like Aldridge a lot in this one.
Gare Bear, who you like at the 5, dude?
I'm going to go with DeAndre 8. Honestly, this season, Dallas might be the best matchup an opposing center can draw. They're giving up the most DraftKings points per game to opposing centers. In the last 2 weeks alone, we've seen Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas, Nikola Vucevic. The aforementioned Robert Williams had a pretty good game against the Mavericks. They just bleed fantasy points to centers because they're giving up the 5th most points per game in the paint and the 4th most opponent rebounds per 100 possessions so far this season. There's no Frank Kaminsky tonight, so maybe Aiden gets a couple extra minutes, but he looked good coming off that 2-week absence in his last game, played 33 minutes. I think he's 100%, and I think $6,200, which is the lowest price point we've seen him at so far this season, is a steal to get someone who has 50 DraftKings point upside.
Wow. Good morning, Julian Edlow. Please hook us up with your building block at center.
Good morning, Emerson. I like a lot of the guys that these dudes have already gone to. The Cleveland-Brooklyn matchup in the most that Nick kind of talked about, because I would love to use some Cavs value here at center with Mobley and Allen out, but you look and there's nothing unless you want to trust Kevin Love, coming out of nowhere to play in this game. Like, who knows how much he's going to play? Who knows if Cleveland gets blown out? So I can't go there. I do like going to the Brooklyn side because Cleveland has literally nobody to defend it. But these guys touched on the spots I'm interested in, so I'll just throw out the cheap chalky name, and that's Tony Bradley, 3,300. A little bit of a tougher matchup against Portland, who has the size in Nurk down low. But without Vooch on the floor for the Bulls are still clicking. They're a side that I like a lot in this game from a sportsbook perspective. But 24 minutes, 27 minutes the last two games for Bradley. He hasn't done anything, 17 DraftKings points last game. But it seems like your floor is 5x here, and you hope he has a good game and you get the 25 DraftKings points.
All right, how about your favorite play at forward, Gary, and who are you going with here?
Let's talk some Anthony Edwards. This guy is just volume. Like, you don't have to worry about him getting up enough shots tonight. You don't have to worry about him getting up enough touches. He's just going to be on the court seemingly all the time. In fact, Edwards actually leads all Western Conference players in minutes played per game so far this season, well up above 36. They just really like to run this guy into the ground. And again, he's not afraid to shoot. His shot hasn't been falling the past 3 games, but you always have to be impressed with the field goal volume that he brings. And even with his shot struggling lately, he's collected double-digit rebounds in each of his last 2 games. So he's shown the ability to really touch on all categories. He's not just a scoring-dependent player. But this is the highest total game on this slate. These 2 teams, Minnesota and Sacramento, are 2 of the 10 in basketball who average more than 100 possessions per 48 minutes. So you're probably going to get a nice pace to this contest as well. I think it will be the highest scoring game of the night, and I just want a piece of it somehow. And I think Edwards, like I said, is probably the best way to get there because he is just pure volume.
All right, Jules, when you're looking at this slate, which forward stands out to you?
Yeah, I like Edwards a lot. Another guy that has been pure volume for 1 full game is Cedi Osman for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Took 17 shots, made 10 of them. I don't think he's going to shoot 6 of 12 from downtown again like he did against the Celtics on Monday night when he scored 43 DraftKings points. But I just mentioned I want a center for the Cavs with the Mobley Allen situation, but there literally isn't one. So I will just go to the forward position and use it there. Osman's going to be severely undersized, to go up against some of the guys that he goes up against in this game. But he's going to be on the floor because Cleveland just doesn't have any other options. And if Kevin Love is eased back in, if he plays in this game, there's only so much he can do. So I think Osman, just based on volume, and Isaac Okoro is a good young player in a good spot coming back here. He finally pieced together a good game on Monday night. He's looking like a pretty popular play on this slate. You can play both of them if you want, but I prefer Osman here. I think he's in a spot where he's just not going to be shy and get up a lot of shots in this game against Brooklyn.
All right, Nick, who are you rolling with?
When you look over on DraftKings and you look at the power forward position, you're going to see that the Blazers are one of the better teams against defensively against power forwards. DeMar DeRozan, of course, lines up at power forward for the Bulls, but he's still a small forward when it comes to his skill set, as much as he doesn't stretch the floor as most wings in the league. And that's the guy who I'm going to go with tonight. I think that does make Levine a good pick, too, because the Blazers are as good against small forwards as they are against power forwards. But I like DeRozan ultimately because when you look at it, he's going to have a mismatch tonight defensively. They're more equipped at guarding stereotypical power forwards, and that is not DeRozan at all. So I think right now, with the Blazers, too, I know they've won 2 of their last 3 games, but it's been against bad teams. They really don't have many quality wins this season, and the ones that they do have came earlier in the year. And DeRozan, with Vucevic out too, there are still a lot of extra points to be had. So I think DeRozan's one of those higher priced guys you got to go with tonight.
Talk to me about who you're going with at guard, Jules.
Yeah, I'm going to the obvious spot. We got no Luca on the slate, so that brings up all the Dallas names. And nobody went to Porzingis at forward, which is somewhat surprising. But yeah, it's chalk. I don't even know which one you want to say is a better play between Brunson and Tim Hardaway Jr. You're either going to the volume of getting the ball with Brunson and taking over that point guard role that Doncic has, or the guy that should pick up the more of the scoring load in Tim Hardaway. So, as a sizable dog here in Phoenix, I kind of look to Dallas needing more of the scoring and Tim Hardaway getting up those shots. So, and he's a little bit cheaper. So I'll look at Tim Hardaway here, who has already gone over 30 DraftKings points in 3 of his last 4 games. We know he's not shy, and the one that he missed, he shot 2 of 11 from the field. So the shots are going to be going up, particularly without Doncic here. The only downside here is really if Dallas just gets mopped by Phoenix, like kind of if you played some Philly guys last night in Utah, it didn't work out for you. So as long as they avoid that, I don't see how Tim Hardaway doesn't get a whole lot of volume and flirt with the 40 DraftKings point mark here.
Hey, Nick, would you be okay eating the chalk on Brunson?
Yeah, I would, but when I'm looking at my favorite guard play tonight, I'm actually going to go to one of the games with one of the lower totals at 209, and that's the Knicks Magic game, and I'm going to go with Cole Anthony at 7.9K. I know when you look at the Knicks, like they're not necessarily the best team in terms of pace, so that doesn't help Anthony, but he did just have over 40 DK fantasy points against the Wizards 2 games ago, and they're very similar in pace. The Knicks actually are like a tick ahead of them. And then with Anthony too, in his last 2 games where he's done really well, he's been distributing the ball a little bit more so than he had over in recent games, and that's where we've seen a little bit of fluctuation with him recently. So when I look at this, I do think that we're going to see the over on this one tonight. It's not my favorite pick on the sports book tonight, but I think that with Anthony, he's going to be one leading the charge and of course running the offense the whole time.
All right, Gary, what about you, man?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the well with Tyler Hero one more time. Obviously, you have to wait and see if Jimmy Butler's going to play in this game. If he's in there, Hero's salary has risen far too high where you can actually use him on this slate. But at 7,500, if Butler's unavailable, we've just seen what Hero's role is going to be if Jimmy can't take the court. In the 4 games he's played with Jimmy sidelined, and I think Butler played like 10 minutes in that Lakers game before he left due to injury, but Hero has a 30.2% usage rate. That leads the Heat. He's played more minutes than any other Heat player in that 4-game span. He is just the focal point of the offense. He is the number 1 option when Jimmy is not out there. So I think against the Pelicans squad that is anemic at best on defense, worst defensive rating in the entire NBA, I think the only thing you have to worry about here, and Jules sort of alluded to it earlier in another spot, is there blow potential? Will Tyler Hero actually have to play 36 to 39 minutes tonight, or can he play 27 minutes and sit the 4th quarter? But that's really the only worry I have.
Okay, before we let you guys go, what's your best play of the night for the NBA on the DK Sportsbook? Where are you going, Nick?
Yeah, I talked about the Bulls game earlier, and I think Bulls money line tonight against the Blazers. I was stunned to see them as the underdogs in this game. I know they're on the latter half of a West Coast trip. I said even money right now, but this again, the Blazers, they've only won. Most of their wins rather have come against not quality opponents. The last couple games that they won, 2 out of their last 3 were against the Raptors and then the Rockets. So these are not exactly teams that are intimidating to me. When you look at the spread too at plus 1.5, this is one of the best teams against the spread this season. The Bulls are 10-4. So to me, this was a no-brainer when I saw this one pop up.
All right, Gary, and what's your best play of the night?
Well, Ayton's probably my favorite player of the night, so I'll just find a player prop I like. His rebound total is 10.5. It has been bet up a little bit. It's minus 130, but I still think that's a pretty fair number. This is a prop that he has gone over in each of his last 4 starts. I mentioned how much Dallas struggles defending the paint and the glass. I think he has very little issue getting there if he plays 30 minutes tonight.
All right, Jules, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick's on it with the Bulls. That's the only thing that I've locked in so far is the Bulls even money on the money line there in Portland. But I am looking to bet the Celtics tonight. I'm just not going to bet them until we get the Robert Williams news. If he's in, I'm going to go ahead and grab that 4.5 as quickly as I can. If he's out, I'm going to maybe look for a 5.5 and go there. But the Celtics they were very frustrating at the beginning of the season. They're now all of a sudden 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. And the Hawks are down a lot of wings. They have not been good against the spread. As long as this isn't a look-ahead spot to the Lakers at home on Friday night, I think that Boston's going to hang in this game.
Guys, thank you. We got one more block to go, one more break to go. Len Hochberg is joining us to give his picks for the RSM Classic next.
We made it to the final block of the show, which is definitely a feat that is amazing because Emerson is in a hyper mood today.
I just saw you writing the longest text to
It
somebody.
was to my mother-in-law.
Oh,
she was like asking
is
me
everything
for.
cool with Rita?
Yeah, we just talked.
Rita
a
and I are
lot.
tight. I talk to Rita all the time.
Yeah, so.
Anywho,
Anyway, we're closing out the show with RotoWire senior golf writer Len Hochberg. Len, thank you for being here. It's PGA Tour price check time. So which golfers do you like at these price ranges for the RSM Classic in Georgia? A lot of Spanish moss down there.
I was waiting on you to say that. Scotty Scheffler is the favorite on the DK Sportsbook for this event. He also has the highest DFS salary at $10.9, Len. Wow, that's expensive. But there are 4 other golfers: Webb Simpson, Louis Oosthuizen, Cam Smith, Harris English. They're also going to cost you, at least $10K as well. You like one of those options better than the top price golfer here?
Well, you guys, first of all, you guys put me in a great mood here. You're having such a good time. I'm hoping not to be a downer here, and I'm not going to be a downer with Scotty Scheffler. I do kind of like him this week. Boy, when we watched him last Sunday, we thought he was going to have his first PGA Tour victory. He had the lead on the back 9, but stunningly, he fell apart. Jason Kokrak came on, and Scheffler was left with a runner-up, but he was also 4th the week before in Mayakoba. He's playing really, really good golf. He is the dreaded best golfer on tour without a win. That clearly is about to end. Whether it ends this week, we don't know, but if not, it surely will end in 2022. The one really good thing about Scotty Scheffler, or a lot of good things about Scotty Scheffler, he's only 10,900. He's the top guy on the board. We usually see guys well into the 11s, maybe even close to 12. If you like Scotty Scheffler this week, you're not paying $1,500, $1,800 more for him than you would some other $10,000 guy. So he is very moderately priced for a top guy in the field. Like him this week.
Okay, so falling just shy of 10K is Russell Henley. He has 3 top 25 finishes in his last 4 outings, including a T7 finish in Houston last week. So is he someone that you'd consider for your lineups this week?
Yeah, I definitely considered him, and I've struggled with Russell Henley. He's really quite a conundrum to me. First of all, he has been playing well, as you say. He absolutely leads the tour in strokes gained approach, an elite iron player. Very important stat this week, very important stat every week. But he has not done well at this tournament. He was 30th last year, missed the cut the 2 previous years. I am reluctantly and hesitantly going to say no to Russell Henley this week.
All right, well, where are you finding value in this tournament, Lan? I feel like there's lots of options here.
Well, yeah, there are. And first of all, Kevin Kisner, and when we saw the prizes come out, and Kevin Kisner, former champion, playoff loser last year, only $9,200, everybody's eyes lit up. So yeah, the biggest value is $9,200. Usually don't talk value in the 9,000s, but wanted to point that out, but also to say that he will be a very popular guy at that price. So if you're looking to avoid the crowds, don't go to Kevin Kisner at $9,200. I like Patrick Rogers at $7,700. He's had hit or miss here the last 5 years. 3 missed cuts, but also 2 top 10s. He was runner-up to Charles Howell in 2018. So a little risk reward on Patrick Rogers, but at only $7,700, I think it's worth it. $7,400. Aaron Rye, the Englishman, just got his PGA Tour card through the Korn Ferry Finals. He looked terrible coming out of the gate, missed 3 cuts in a row, but he's made his last 3, 2 of them top 20s, the last 2 times out, and at very different courses, Mayakoba in Houston. Get Aaron Rye before his price goes up much higher than $7,400. Few guys in the $6,000, $6,800. Andrew Landry done very well here the last few years. Michael Thompson, $6,700, better on short tracks. Davis Riley at $6,700, a Korn Ferry grad. And way down at $6,400, Davis Thompson. He finished 23rd as an amateur here 2 years ago. He's a former Georgia Bulldog. They play the SEC men's tournament every year at Seaside. So he's very familiar with this course. And his father, Todd Thompson, is the tournament director, probably gets him on every once in a while. $6,400, Davis Thompson.
All right, is there someone near the top of the salary board, Len, that you just don't think is worth the extra money this week?
Yeah, it's difficult because this is a maxed out field of 156. It's the first one of the fall with that many golfers, and there aren't that many good golfers. So it's hard to shy away from any of the big names, but the 2 $10,000 guys who I like less than the others, Louis Oosthuizen and Harris English, it's close, and also just under 10,000, Joaquin Niemann. He was 5th a couple of weeks ago at Mayakoba, but that's really his only result in quite some time. He missed the cut last week. Going to stay away from Joaquin Niemann, also at 9,700.
All right, finally, who do you think is going to take home the title here at the RSM Classic this weekend?
Last week when you asked me that question for Houston, I said Cam Smith. He obviously didn't win. He tied for 15th. He had a bad stretch on Thursday where he went 3 over in 2 holes. It really shot himself in the foot. It really kept him from the first page of the leaderboard. I know that just about everybody can look back over 72 holes and find 2 or 3 holes that really sunk their chances. But he's been playing well. His other start in the fall, 9th at the CJ Cup. His iron play is really so much better this year. 14th in strokes gained approach early in the season. Not a lot, a very small sample size, but he's just got an elite short game. I like him again this week. I think he can close the deal this week.
The world's highest ranked Aussie, too. 23 in the world. I like it, Len. Always good talking to you, man.
Yeah, that is the show, everyone. Thank you for watching. Madden is starting with the Eagles at the 49ers at noon. And make sure you tune into the slate at 5 p.m. with Emerson, Jeff, and Reed for more on the PGA Tour and the NFL.
We have got a lot to cover tonight at 5 o'clock. I really hope you guys can join us. Thank you so much.